Earlier this year, it's widely believed that a nonprofit hospital system spent millions of dollars to get their name on the Philadelphia Eagles training facility. A nonprofit hospital system. And in the United States, the hospital system is one of the largest industries in the entire world. Revenues exceed $1.4 trillion a year. That's more than the entire GDPs of countries like the Netherlands, Switzerland, or even oil-rich Saudi Arabia. That wouldn't surprise me. Now, the interesting thing here is almost 50% of US hospitals are called non-profit, meaning they were originally designed to put patients before profits. Technically, they can't even get profits in the traditional sense. Yet, this hasn't stopped many of them from pulling in billions in operating surpluses every year. So how did nonprofit hospitals become cash machines? In this video, we're going to break down how more than half of US nonprofit hospitals are taking in more than they're giving, why 7 of the 10 highest paid nonprofit CEOs in the US actually run hospitals, and what you can do if you or somebody that you know who doesn't make a lot of money gets hit with an outrageous hospital bill. Let's dive in. In late 2021, a woman named Alexandra was rushed to a hospital in Everett, Washington with a medical emergency. Alexandra didn't have a lot of money. She actually lived off her disability check of $2,000 a month, so she was a little bit apprehensive about taking an ambulance to the hospital. But she was getting more disoriented as time passed, so she really didn't have much of a choice. And it's a good thing that she did go to the doctor because they actually discovered that her kidneys were failing. Now, the New York Times reported that she was taken to Providence Hospital, a nonprofit hospital chain that works on an operating revenue of more than $1 billion a year. Reportedly, after she got her remaining bill balance, $1,950, she was only given 2 options. Either she paid in full or she could set up a payment plan. Now, I recognize for some people, $1,950 for a hospital bill isn't crazy, especially compared to some of the other hospital bills out there. But what is crazy, because Providence is a nonprofit and Alexandra's income was pretty low, she shouldn't have had to pay anything. But Providence got her set up on a monthly payment plan, and she ended up not being able to afford her heating bill and was forced to cut back on buying her medications. Adding insult to injury, a couple months later, she got a letter in the mail from Providence. It said, "No gift is too small to make a meaningful impact." They were asking her for a donation. And reportedly, Alexandra's case is just one of many like this for Providence. The New York Times reported that in 2018, senior executives of the hospital were reportedly frustrated that providing free healthcare was eating into their bottom line. To fix that, they paid the consulting firm McKinsey & Company at least $45 million to overhaul their system. The result was a program called Rev Up, which had a goal to get every possible dollar out of patients, even the ones who legally qualified for free care. The employee training material for the Rev Up program was something that you probably see in a sales movie like The Wolf of Wall Street.
Move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.
Right. Just ruthless, telling staff don't accept the first no. Employees were instructed to approach patients in their hospital beds, sometimes the second the doctor finished an exam, and ask them for money. They were told to ditch weak phrases like, "Would you mind paying?" and instead demand to know how the patient wanted to pay today, reportedly. Financial aid was the last resort only if a patient refused to pay the bill or set up a payment plan. All this for an organization that was founded by nuns back in the 1850s. But this isn't actually the worst part. This only affects a relatively small number of patients, not the entire United States. Let's talk about something called the fair share deficit. Most US hospitals have been founded by religious organizations over the last couple hundred years. During this time, because most US residents lived off of relatively little and insurance wasn't as common, many of these hospitals operated on razor-thin margins. It can get really expensive to take care of people who can't pay you for that care. Stay with me here. Imagine your grandparents or maybe great-grandparents lived out in rural Oklahoma in the early 1900s. They're making their living off of farming. Some years they may have money, some years they don't, and medical emergencies happen whenever. So to take care of one of them if they happen to get a stroke or heart attack, the US government called these hospitals nonprofits, and then they gave them significant financial benefits, including exemptions from federal income tax. Basically, they don't have to pay it. And that is continued to today. But there's a catch. If they want to keep not paying taxes, the IRS wants nonprofit hospitals to do a few things. Help out patients who can't afford to pay for medical care, make sure that those people know about these public assistance programs, and avoid sending certain people to debt collectors before patients have been evaluated for not making a lot of money or not being able to pay their medical bills. And in the United States today, 58% of the more than 5,000 community hospitals are considered nonprofit. But things have changed a lot since those early days. As more Americans have gained insurance and medical treatments have become more effective and more expensive, there's a lot of money to be made. Elizabeth Rosenthal, author of the book An American Sickness, put it this way in one of her articles. Not-for-profit hospitals merged with one another, pursuing economies of scale. Then, in this century, they also began acquiring parts of healthcare systems that had long been for-profit. That raised some legal eyebrows. How could a nonprofit simply acquire a for-profit? But regulators and the IRS let it ride. And you know what? The IRS has also let some some other things slide as well, like the community benefit requirements. Here's some of the things listed as a community benefit on nonprofit health systems tax forms just this last year. Creating jobs, building energy efficient facilities, hiring minority or women-owned contractors, upgrading parks with lighting and comfortable seating, creating healing gardens and spas for patients. None of that really sounds like medical care to me. The laxing of these requirements has also extended to executive salaries too. Nearly half of the CEOs of America's leading nonprofit health systems had salaries that exceeded $2.5 million. And that's crazy because these nonprofits get to keep an unbelievable amount of money through tax write-offs. I'll show you what I mean. Take a look at these nonprofit hospitals. On that far right column that says tax exemption, it shows how much each got in a tax write-off. Basically how much taxes they didn't have to pay. The column right to the left shows how much they gave back to the community according to their tax forms. And that total on the far left is what the Lown Institute calls the fair share deficit. The difference between how much they got and how much they gave. Meaning all of these hospitals got 65 million all the way to 325 million more than they gave back to the community according to their tax filings. That's insane. And the Lown Institute actually found that the fair share deficit of hospitals in these 20 states was enough to eliminate the medical debt of 10 million Americans every single year. But I should say, not all nonprofit hospitals in the US are doing this. This list is the inverse. These hospitals gave back more than they got. And there are many hospitals like these ones that are living out their lofty missions and giving back more to the community. But there's probably just as many who started off with a lofty mission, but a team of consultants, financial managers, and top executives from for-profit sector have simply changed the culture. But making this more practical, what do you do if you or somebody that you know doesn't make a lot of money and they get hit with an outrageous hospital bill? If you're staring at a massive bill from a nonprofit hospital, you might have more leverage than some people want you to know. Here's 3 things you can do. Number 1, demand the financial assistance policy. By law, these charities must have a plain language policy for low to middle income patients. Ask for the charity care application. Many hospitals cover 100% of the cost for households that make up to 250% of the federal poverty line. Number 2, check the 501(r) status. If you or somebody you know gets sent to collections without screening you for financial aid first, they might be violating IRS tax exempt rules. Mentioning this to a billing department could often get the bill adjusted or dismissed entirely. Number 3, use $4. There are nonprofits that will automate the financial aid application for you. They've already wiped out millions in debt by forcing many of these cash machines to follow their own rules. If you found this video interesting, you'd like to see more like it in the future, please consider subscribing for more. This is Tyler Dutchover. Thanks for watching.